The Oracle Network.
Welcome to Brew Crime, the podcast where we drink brews, talk crimes, conspiracies, or whatever catches our attention. This is Mike, and my co-host,
JT. Hi, everybody.
Welcome, everybody.
Man, it's been a crazy week.
Yes, it has. I am kind of done with October. Luckily, this episode comes out in November, so the month will be over. Woohoo!
It's my birthday month.
Oh, yay!
Rock on. Happy birthday to November babies.
Yay. And a reminder to everyone that coming up at December 1st, we have something exciting coming up.
Yes, I'm very excited. We've just spent a good chunk of time actually recording, and they're looking good.
Yes. Sounding good, too.
They sounded good. Great, too. Yeah, which is really more important for podcasting.
Because we're not recording video.
No. But we are excited to say that our series called Hoppy Holidays is coming your way December 1st through December 31st. And it is going to be a short form episode, a mini-sode, if you will, a flight, if you are a beer fan.
31 episode flight, and I think probably 32 episode flight if you're a Patreon supporter.
Yes, and so we're really excited to share that to you, and hopefully you'll stay up with us and listen every single day.
Yeah. But this is not one of those episodes.
No.
We're not there yet. This is, one more episode after this you'll have to wait for before you can get to Hoppy Holidays.
Yep.
So you're going to have to deal with 2 more long form episodes. Oh, shucks,
dang.
right? Oh, shucks.
It's like when I was driving to work today or yesterday, and on the way to work I saw a sign in the middle of the rain. Somebody was holding it over the highway and it said, "Fuck Joe Biden." I hate people so much.
Also, fuck all politicians at this point.
I'm so tired of all of it. I'm tired of people I'm just tired of it. I'm done.
Yeah.
So I wish people could just be decent human beings.
Yeah,
But
we've proven that with COVID that it's not possible for most people to be good human beings.
Nope, not a good chunk of them.
Nope.
But that's not why we're here today.
No, it's not. We digress.
We do, but we're taking a little trip.
Yes, we are. Where are we taking this trip?
We're taking a trip all the way to Belize.
Woohoo, Belize. Do-do-do. The reason why we picked this episode really is about 2 months ago we started charting in Belize on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. So we thought, why not plan to do an episode in Belize? Because fuck, why not? They're charting. They're liking our show.
Give the people what they want.
Exactly.
It's what we are. It's what we do. So if you have suggestions for cases, or if you would like us to do something from where you're at, feel free to drop us a line.
Or tell all your friends to listen to our show, and then we'll chart there, and maybe we'll do a show about where you're at.
I like that too. That works nicely.
Yes. It also helps if you leave us a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, because then we chart there faster.
That's also accurate. So please, if you can, wherever you're at listening to podcasts, give us the ultimate number of stars, because that means something.
Yes, 5, I think, right?
Yeah, the most devilish number, 5.
5. Oh, wait.
Damn it, 1 off.
111 off.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you said that, because I was about to say 1 off, and that's not true.
All right. Well, JT's going to start this episode off. So what is your case, sir?
I am indeed. And my case is titled The Belizean Whodunit.
Ooh.
So I'm going to start off like I have for the past couple episodes, but that's okay, with a quote. Jan Martel said, "Grief is a disease. We were riddled with its pockmarks, tormented by its fevers, broken by its blows. It ate at us like maggots, attacked us like lice. We scratched ourselves to the edge of madness. In the process, we became as withered as crickets, as tired as old dogs." So when we deal with grief of any sort, our bodies and minds suffer, and grief that we can attribute to something, our grief is seemingly has some end with a salve or instrument of healing, but without that, it could be detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes grief that has no conclusion. Unsolved murder cases weigh on individuals, families, and communities. And when cases grow cold, communities grow hot and battle for reactivation of an investigation. But what if there are limited resources to investigate? What if there wasn't much that could be done other than to follow up on leads and hope that someone or something breaks in the case? The case I'm calling the Belizean Whodunit is a case that still to this day has no answers. And it's a case that for 23 years has baffled authorities and the country of Belize. And that's my intro. And here's my beer.
All right.
So the beer that I'm choosing today is called Hopped to Death.
Ooh.
Which is it's really kind of a dark humor choice. But it was put together by Three Ring Brewing in partnership with Burial Beer. And this is from Asheville, North Carolina, which is not far away. Asheville's an amazing city. It's beautiful in North Carolina, in the mountains. But it's a dry hopped Pilsner brewed with Epiphany malt and a blend of traditional German and juicy American hops. It's a very good beer, actually. I was worried I didn't know how I was going to like it. And I sent Mike a message and was like, it could be okay. But then I realized it was from Asheville, and chances are it was probably really going to be all right.
Yeah, they make some good beer there.
And in terms of it's a lighter beer, but it is hoppy. You're going to be doing the hurdles. That's how hoppy it is. As bad as that joke was, that's how hoppy it is.
Nice.
But it is a very good beer, and I'm going to leave it at that because I want to hop into this case. But I also, I've realized that I will explain the beer and maybe I'll get to describing the beer eventually, but why fake my knowledge? Because I'm sure everybody listening, if they know beer, is like, this guy knows nothing. Here we go, right?
All right, let's do this.
So one of the things I like to do is give a little bit of context. I think everybody knows that by this point. So in the spirit of that, let me just kind of give some basic facts about Belize. And to be honest, there was very little I knew about the country.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, and to read up on it's fascinating, and it might just give us some answers as to how this could have happened and why it's gone unsolved. And at the most basic level, however, it's fun to learn new things about a country. I really enjoy that. Belize has Mexico to the north, the Caribbean Sea to the east, and Guatemala to the south. Its official language is English, with a minority language including Creole, Spanish, Mayan, German, Garifuna, and Chinese.
I had no idea. Wow.
No, I know. And, I wrote in here, German, right? So, you make the German Nazi joke here, right?
Probably, unfortunately.
I'm sure you saw it coming because I did not see that coming. So in terms of ethnicity, it's 52.9% Mestizo, 25.9% Creole, 11.3% Mayan, and a combination of many other ethnicities to include Garifuna, East Indian, Mennonite, Caucasian, and Asian.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah, no doubt.
So religion, because, that's fun to talk about, is 74.3% Christian, 15.6% no religion, and 9.6% other.
How about their politics?
Yeah, because that's the next fun thing to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to skip that.
Because you didn't look it up.
Right. The area of Belize is 22,966 square kilometers, or about 8,800, a little over that, square miles. The population as of 2020 was 419,199 with a population density of 17.79 per square kilometer or 46.1 per square mile.
Wow.
That's a lot.
So little people for a country.
Right.
What did you say the population of the whole country was again?
419,199.
The population of the city of Vancouver is over 675,000 people. Yeah, one city. And that's not a very big city either, compared to like New York City.
But that also tells you how small Belize is, right?
Yeah, it does. Wow.
So the growth rate of Belize is 1.87%, which is the second highest in the region and one of the highest in the Western Hemisphere.
Wow.
And that leads me to ask, where the fuck did they go? You know what I mean? Like, holy shit.
I don't know many people from Belize in Canada, so they're not coming here. Lots of people from all over the world, though.
Yeah. So
China, Mexico, India, all over the place. Europe,
Yeah.
obviously.
So 60% of Belize is covered by forest, and around 20% is cultivated land for agricultural and kind of human settlements. The Maya civilization spread into the area of Belize between 1500 BC and AD 300, and it really did well until about 1200, and I bet you can guess what happened next.
Maybe some colonizers coming in and discovering.
Oh, discovering that they had a cough.
Oh,
So
smallpox, huh?
yeah. So European contact occurred in 1492 when Christopher Columbus sailed along the Gulf of the Honduras.
Oh, that nice guy.
Yeah, right. That's the sound his boat made as it went through the water.
Yeah. No, even his own people back home were like, "You're fucked up, man."
Well, that's why he went away. They sent him. They were like, "You probably won't come back. Bye."
We hope you don't come back. Go away. Shit, he made it back.
Yeah, damn it. So European exploration began by English settlers in 1638, and I don't really understand calling it exploration. It was a guess.
Yeah.
You just kind of came across it. You didn't discover anything because it was there forever, and people were living there. And it's not like you sailed up on it and rendered it like a crappy 90s video game and just boom, it's there, right?
Fog of War.
Yeah, right. The whole thing, the exploration thing, just drives me nuts. I'm like, it was always there.
Yep.
So Spain and Britain both laid claim to the land until Britain defeated the Spanish in the Battle of St. George's in 1798. Of course, no one thought to ask the folks who already lived there what they thought. Because why would they? It's just like Spain and Britain. It's like me. I live in Virginia, right? And I watch, the Browns, and I watch Seattle play football. And it's like if they were fighting over my state. They don't belong here. They don't live here. But I guess I got to pick one.
Yep.
So Belize became a British colony in 1840, and they didn't gain independence from the UK until September 21st, 1981.
Oh, that's even later than Canada.
Yeah. So it's the only Central American country where English is the official language.
Yeah, that's the first one I've ever fucking heard of, for sure.
Yeah, it's a parliamentary constitutional monarchy. It's a structure based on the British parliamentary system, and the legal system is modeled after the common law of England.
Kind of probably similar to Canada then in some ways.
Probably. However, here's your difference. Despite being independent, Queen Elizabeth II holds the title of Queen of Belize.
Oh, yeah, she's still the Queen of Canada, too.
That's ridiculous.
Yep.
She's not even the goddamn Queen of England. So, whatever.
Just an old friggin' frail woman.
It's just a bunch of younger people going, when's she going to go?
When's she going to go? When is her inbred son going to take over?
Get the ears. The ears say something. Okay. And that's me who has big ears too. So Queen Elizabeth is represented by the Governor General, and there's a cabinet who advises the Governor General, and it's led by the Prime Minister of Belize, who is the head of the government.
So the same as Canada. Yeah.
Well, then our listeners shall know what I'm talking about because it was new news to me.
Well, then we got a lot of American listeners. A lot of American listeners.
So Belize has freedom of speech, press, worship, movement, and association.
Quick question. You may not know, but do they have freedom of speech or freedom of expression?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay. That's just because Canada has the freedom of expression, which is different than the freedom of speech. So I was wondering if they had that, and it was just one of those things you just wrote freedom of speech because you're used to that as an American. I'm not sure.
So what I found was speech.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how they define it.
Okay, no worries.
It could be different.
Because freedom of expression doesn't protect you from hate speech. You can say it, but you have to take the consequences from it.
Boy, wouldn't that be nice?
Yes,
Imagine that.
So
real world.
there is actually a big difference, and a lot of conservative Canadians don't understand that difference, and they just talk about their freedom of speech. And sorry, buddy, you don't have that in Canada.
I like how you said sorry, buddy.
Bro, I don't know. Hoser.
So, hoser, I love it. So Belize has a massive tourism industry. In 2012, tourist arrivals totaled 917,869.
Wow.
Just under 64% of them came from the United States. Receipts from tourists amounted over $1.3 billion.
Wow, that's awesome.
It is a huge industry. So, of course, with the whole COVID pandemic, they wanted to open as quickly as possible.
2 people.
That's a lot of money. Yeah, right. So, regarding crime, relatively high rates of violent crime stem from gang activity, including trafficking of drugs and persons, protecting drug smuggling routes, and securing territory for drug dealing.
Big surprise.
In 2018, 143 murders were recorded, homicide rates of 36 murders per 100,000 people, which is one of the highest in the world, less than Honduras and El Salvador, which led to their new slogan, Belize, you're less likely to be killed? Maybe, kinda? In 2015, there were 40 reported cases of rape, 214 robberies, 742 burglaries, and 1,027 cases of theft. So your stuff ain't safe.
No.
Police have implemented some things to decrease crimes, but I'm not exactly sure how effective they are. They've put more patrols to hotspots. They've obtained more resources to deal with the issue, which is not exactly specific. They have a program called Do the Right Thing for Youths at Risk, which is like Belizean Dare, is what that sounds like. They have a crime information hotline, which is good. And they have the Abro Citizen Development Committee, which helps youth as well. Social structure-wise, they have enduring differences in distributions of wealth, power, prestige. Social distance is significant, but it's not as bad as other Caribbean and Central American societies, which leads me to my next new slogan, Belize, where, chances of you being killed are less, kind of, but you won't feel as poor here as you do there. So, it's a fucking big sign.
Yeah.
Political and economic power remain vested in the hands of the local elite. So,
yeah, same here.
Right. I was going to say this. Yep. So in terms of how women are treated, the World Economic Forum ranked Belize 101st out of 132 countries in its global gender gap in 2013. 48.3% of women participate in the workforce compared to 81.8% of men. Only 13.3% of the seats in the National Assembly are filled by women. And that's important later on because of the target of the Belizean Ripper.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about the country, and it's fascinating. It's a fascinating little piece of land that has kind of quite the formidable history to it, in which explorers destroyed as much as they do as any other places. But here we are, and there we are, and what I'm trying to say is, can we please just quit Columbus Day? That'd be great. Thank you.
Well, we don't do that here. I just going to quickly look. I just looked it up, and it says the Constitution of Belize ensures access to the information and participation within the framework of freedoms of expression, peaceful assembly, and association. So there you go. It's actually freedom of expression. Yeah.
Like you mentioned, there's a really good distinction to make.
Yeah.
So what we're here for is to discuss the unsolved case of the Belizean Ripper, which is a tad redundant because when you use the word Ripper, you attribute it to Jack the Ripper, as Belize meant to.
Yeah.
And they never figured out that one. So don't at me with your theories. I don't have enough time to read them all. There's a billion.
But if you do, send them.
Yeah, it's true. I'm interested.
We'll read them and take claim for them.
I'll read your name off.
Yeah, exactly.
So my goal is simply to talk about the case, what happened, some of the responses to it, one of the people who was in fact arrested, and then a theory that's pretty far-fetched if you just take one moment to consider the links, but also the MO comparison. So what happened? So on September 8th, 1998, 13-year-old Shirley Nicholas was a fifth grade student at Wesley Upper School in southern Belize City. She was walking towards her school when she went missing. June Gabrielle, and I'm sorry if I'm messing up that name, I'm trying my best. That Shirley's mother said, quote, "It was the 8th of September. My daughter Shirley Nicholas went to school and she didn't return. When I went home from work, she'd usually be the first to come home. And when I found out that the rest of her brothers and sisters came home and she didn't, she is usually the first. Like I said, I figured that something was wrong. So I went to the school and found out, and the teacher told me that she wasn't at school. And then I knew something was wrong because my children were not the type to go around missing from school or things like that."
Mm-hmm.
So no one knew where the hell she went until her body was found on October 9th. So about a month later, she was found in a pool of water near the George Price Highway. She was stabbed over 40 times in the head and chest.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, one of her arms was nearly cut off and her face was cut open, and the body showed signs of rape as well. So, on top of this, as if that wasn't enough, there was a super creepy concept here where her body was found to be wearing the clothes of another girl who had gone missing just 2 days prior to her discovery.
Holy fuck, that's awful, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this was an attempt to confuse and throw off authorities or if it's just the sick mind of a sick individual doing sick things. But 2 days before, on October 7th, 1998, the girl whose clothing Cheryl Lee was discovered wearing was 9-year-old Jay Blades. Her skull and a few bones were recovered 6 months later, around April 1999. And if the whole clothes thing wasn't weird enough, she was discovered with Cheryl Lee's knapsack. Yeah.
What?
The switch that happens doesn't really happen again. And I'm trying to really wrap my head around what this means, because at a certain point, he must have had both girls in the same place.
Yeah, you would think so, yeah.
Right. I don't know what condition they were in, but that's what I have determined it means. Now, that's purely speculation on my part. I mean, to be able to control two girls or control one while it's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
So when Jay Blades was found with Cheryl Lee's backpack, investigators thought they had misidentified Cheryl Lee. They exhumed Cheryl Lee's body against her mother's wishes with the idea that they would send DNA samples to the FBI.
That's interesting that they would send to the FBI too, because that's the U.S.'s federal police force.
That does come more into play a little bit later too. So March 23rd, 1999, 12-year-old Jackie Fern Malik was playing on her school's playground and she vanished. Her body was found on March 25th, face down in a puddle along a dirt road. The road bordered the area where the first young girl was found. She had been stabbed multiple times, and her left arm had been severed with indications that she had been run over as well by a car.
Jesus.
Yeah. So Adelma Malik said during an interview in 2016, quote, "Our old-time neighbor, Michael Williams, approached us and said, 'Let me take you to school.' That time, me and my sister and that girl who we usually went to school together, he said to us, 'Let me take you to school.' And my sister wanted to go because she was already late for morning class. But I get this feeling and I just said no. I don't know why I said it, but that's what I said. And we all went to school. And after that, when it's time to go home for lunch, I went for my sister so that we could go home. The teacher said that my sister didn't come back to class. The girl that we usually all of us come to school together, she said that someone said they wanted to see my sister outside. And I said, 'Who?' And the teacher said, 'A man in a car, dark man. I don't know if he's tall or strapping. All she says is it's dark man.' And so Jackie's sister ran. Yeah, just let her go. Jackie's sister ran home quickly and told her grandmother, and they went looking for her for that time, right immediately. So Jackie's sister was basically was like, 'Hey, I'm here to pick up that person.' And they let her go.
That's nuts. So, I can't believe they would do that.
I know. So on the day of Jackie's funeral, children lined the streets with signs demanding justice. A children's summit was also called, and a young boy asked the prime minister, quote, 'Why are there special police to protect the tourists, but not the children?'
Yeah,
out of the mouth of babes, right? So June 26, 1999, 8-year-old Erica Wills disappeared. It went unnoticed for 3 days because of a series of unfortunate events. She was supposed to stay at some relatives, but they thought she was home with her family. Her family thought they were at the relatives, so there was just no communication there.
That's so awful.
It sucks. And it's, that's not victim blaming. That's just, that's what happened.
Awful.
That's why the delay. So July 18th, 1999, they found her skeletal remains behind a quarry in Gracie Rock, which is 20 miles west of Belize City. Her mother identified her body via a hairband and a Tweety ring that Erica always wore. That's literally all they had to go off of. At this point, folks are raising their voices because they want authorities to find this person. Tensions are high. Folks wanted the killer to face justice. Victims' families held candlelight vigils to remember their daughters, but also, I would presume, to keep the story in the media so police were forced to continue their investigation.
Yeah, for sure. You'd want that to be loud and out there because you've got to keep the police on that.
Right. So police issued a curfew to all children under the age of 17. Despite this, the Belize Ripper struck one more time. February 15th, 2000, 14-year-old Naomi Hernandez was running an errand on Mosel Street when she went missing. February 24th, she was found mutilated on a sandy mound along the Belize River. She had multiple stab wounds to the face and neck, and several body parts were missing. Her father identified her by the blue jeans she was wearing. So there were a few unrelated crimes that at the time were thought to be the same person. They should be discussed because they added to the fear and the demand for justice and from the community.
Mm-hmm.
They also added to the confusion on top of everything else. So Samantha Gordon, 15, was last seen on November 6, 1998. She told her mom she was going to visit the old Civic Center with some friends. 2 days later, she was found naked, bruised, and floating at sea near Ladiesville Vista Del Mar with deep stab wounds to the back and knees. 4 men ended up being charged for her murder and were convicted in June of 99. Karen Cruz, age 10. In June 1999, she disappeared from the veranda of her Orange Walk townhome. She was found a day after her disappearance at a stadium 2 blocks from her home with signs of being raped. Her next-door uncle, 38-year-old Antonio Beza, was reportedly stalking her, and he was later charged and convicted for that.
Jeez.
Rebecca Becky Gilharry, 13 years old, on February 15th, 1999, after the second victim, Jay Blade's disappearance, Becky's body was found near a Mayan archaeological site in Santa Rita Hill in Corozaltown. Could be Corozaltown. It's one of those two.
Yes, no doubt. They might be an English-speaking nation now, but that's not an English word.
No.
Yeah.
She was raped and strangled. She was last seen in the company of 22-year-old Robert Hill, a family friend who was later charged and convicted. But this all happened in the same time. So they're thinking that there's 3 more victims on top of the already number of victims, right? But they were young girls. It could have been that, this was going to happen anyways, which you'd like to think that that wasn't the case. And it also could have been the case that the convicted sought some kind of advantage with the Belize Ripper by doing something they've always thought about doing the same way or near the same way that the Ripper did it and thought they could get away with it, right? The problem is the MO wasn't always the same and the witnesses could place them in certain places, so they didn't get away with it. In terms of the investigation, in general, they were cases that Belize was just not mentally prepared to deal with. As of 1999, Belize's population was only 200,000, and they've been relatively free of sex crimes and murder. And as we know now, that's changed kind of a lot.
Yeah.
So as we can all understand, panic gripped Belize. It's a tiny place with a family feel overall. Guards were posted at schools, and as mentioned before, there was a curfew imposed after Jackie Malik's funeral. After the last murder, there were many reports of a man driving a red car who wore a stalking mask who unsuccessfully attacked and kidnapped young girls in the city. And they never found this person. So I don't know if this would have been the person or not because, it was never mentioned before the murders. And when you think someone would make their mistakes.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And after all those murders and getting away with things for 2 years, you'd think the Ripper had perfected the tactics that they used. And that can lead to killers getting complacent and making mistakes, but this usually occurs during the commission of a crime and after, not while attempting to attract the victim. Dr. Mario Estradabrun, a pathologist, determined that in addition to being murdered, the girls were given alcohol and drugs along with being tortured. Folks drew the assumption that this was to lessen the pain the victims felt, but I don't really think this is the case.
Me neither.
Yeah, I feel like it was more to make them pliable, flexible, less likely to fight. The person who committed these was brutal, and if there was torture, typically they want to hurt somebody rather than numb the pain before the torture. So Dr. Estradabrun also determined that the same instrument was used in all 5 cases and that the cuts on the body were precise. This led him to think it was either a medical professional or someone who, more than likely, had access to surgical instruments. Authorities thought it was possible that there was more than one person involved, too. Around November 1999, efforts to catch the serial killer included DNA tests that were sent to the FBI. It was reported that the FBI sat on DNA results in all but one case during this time.
Jesus Christ. If they're going to be involved, be involved.
Right. So I don't really have anything to back that up other than the report I read. The police were in a bind because what they did have was very little. And what they did have, they lacked the forensic facilities to test blood, semen, fibers, and bones. A police spokeswoman said, quote, "The investigation had been most definitely slowed down waiting for evidence, and the Belize police appealed to the FBI and were now considering Scotland Yard for assistance." So, we're talking the 90s, we're talking early 2000, we're also talking possible the distraction from terrorist attacks. It's, there's a lot of things that are happening with the FBI and also a mess. And this is not something they should have committed to if they couldn't actually complete it, right?
Maybe they should have asked the RCMP.
It would have been done much quicker, I'm sure.
Technically, the RCMP are at the federal level the same as the FBI, so...
Well, then, yeah, there's so many other options.
Yeah, because they're also a federal police service, like the FBI. Oh. But then they have regional offices as well.
The more you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So the one suspect that they decided might be was Michael Williams. He was an auto mechanic from Belize City. He was a neighbor of the victim, Jackie Malik. He was 40 years old at the time of the murder, and he was seen offering a ride to Jackie and her sister Adelma, but both declined. Jackie disappeared, and police questioned him, released him, but was rearrested and charged when Jackie's body was found. Williams was also accused of raping a 13-year-old girl a decade prior while he was held in jail. Folks thought that they had gotten the killer. But while Williams was still in custody, Erica Wills went missing. They combined this fact with the alibis provided by his clients and a police officer, and they just also didn't have enough evidence, and he was exonerated and let out of jail. So I'm not sure if it was him.
Yeah.
I mean...
It could have been for some of them, if it's like Jack the Ripper, where it might be multiple people, but...
Yeah, it could be, yeah. So there is one theory that's fascinating to me, and it involves Lonnie David Franklin Jr., who, if anybody listening is familiar, he's known as the Grim Sleeper. And he's an American serial killer, and he was connected to the murders of at least 10 sex workers in Los Angeles, California, over several decades. He did have a 14-year break between known murders, which lasted from 1988 to 2002. He had connections to Belize, as he was married to Sylvia Castillo, who was from there. One of the victim's aunts said she saw him in Belize City at the time, and in addition, his van that was used in one of the proven killings was later found in Belize. He was never actually charged with these killings, though. Now, if we talk about this other than just those bullet points, I don't know if there is much in the way of criminal history and MO that points to Lonnie Franklin. He was kind of one of the longest operating serial killers in history.
Yeah.
Which meant he was either really good at whatever he did, or more than likely the victims were not classified as, quote, people, as they were sex workers from LA, and investigations are never really as intense for those folks.
Yeah. And that's in every city, not just LA.
Sure. And at least not back then.
Yeah.
For, basically
still.
people who, for at least an at-risk population, right? Or what people deem at risk. So Lonnie Franklin's called the Grim Sleeper because of that 14-year sleep that followed his initial murders. And is it possible that he went to Belize and murdered children? Sure. I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah.
Is it probable? Personally, and the rest of this is speculation, I don't think so.
No, probably not.
His MO was that he targeted poor black women who he sexually assaulted, photographed, and shot in the chest at close range with a .25 caliber gun. He left their bodies in alleyways and around trash. He did change his MO in 2002 when he came back and shifted it to strangulation for 2 out of 3 of his later victims. His final victim was shot and strangled. But he chose women he thought wouldn't be missed. Prostitutes, addicts, young runaways. And he did this because of vengeance against a female figure who wronged him in the past. He hurt victims that resembled her, and he got sexual pleasure from inflicting that pain.
Fucking monster.
Yeah, on top of that, to add to the monster, he collected trophies including women's jewelry, homemade pornographic Polaroids of unconscious, possibly dead women. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think this was him. The girls were young. They were primarily stabbed and cut, and while they were raped, I don't think they would fit why he did it. If there
No.
ever is a logical why, they just don't fit. Again, he was in the area, sure. A van tied to the killings was found in Belize, sure. Could he have done something more brutal in the 14-year sleep he had and chosen younger girls who most certainly would be missed because he felt more anonymous in a different country? You bet.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if this is a theory worth pursuing further, as I don't think it would warm up this cold case. I just don't think so.
Me neither.
So
yeah.
it's always tough to cover these cases. When you do wish for something more solid, you wish for something that could be the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have access to the files, and I certainly do not think I could be an armchair detective, other than my speculation that I mentioned earlier, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, I don't think it's helpful. What I do think is that it should be looked at again with today's technology. We have a lot more capabilities than there were in the late 90s and early 2000s. Chances are this dude has committed other crimes previously or post this, and if Belize has any records of DNA, it's going to be on file. I'm not entirely sure if they do have a program like that, or if they even have the capability to do that. But what I know is that some items might be able to be run, cross-checked, and possibly solved, bringing some sense of peace to the families.
Mm-hmm.
Something that chilled me during an interview with June Gabrielle, Sherilyn's mother, the first victim. She was asked, "So where is the case? Is it just up in the air?" And her response was, quote, "It's concrete. It's under the ground." As of December 30th, 2016, it seems that there was a $100,000 reward for any information leading to the conviction of the Belize Ripper. And that's my case, the Belize Ripper. It was super sad to read about.
Mm-hmm. That's
Any
awful.
victim's sad, but when you're talking about young children who are just abducted on their way to school, at school, in a market, I mean, it's just heartbreaking.
And it's next level because it's unsolved.
And it's unsolved. And so if anybody's listening and if anybody in Belize is listening and has any idea, any thought at all, give them a call.
Yeah, don't give us a call. Call whatever emergency service number it is there.
Yeah. Tell us you have something and I will research the number and I will send it to you.
Yeah.
But if you have any knowledge of that, or you know anybody who might, it's worth mentioning, because if you do see something, say something. And although that's the catchphrase of the other podcast that I narrate, it's the truth here.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely say something if you know something, because that makes a huge difference. And maybe, just maybe, unlike the theory of the grim sleeper, it may warm up the cold case, and these families deserve some answers.
Yes, they sure do.
So now that I've brought the room down, I'm going to let Mike take us home.
Perfect. This story is actually written by our good friend CJ from Beyond the Rainbow.
We love CJ.
Yeah, CJ's awesome. So she actually named this too, which is even better. I didn't have to come up with a name.
Yes.
So this is called The Lady, the Lord's Son, and the Cop.
Ooh, yes. I like that.
And the beer pairing for this is Aerosmith Blonde Ale from Mount Arrowsmith Brewing Company. And Mount Arrowsmith Brewing is in Parksville on Vancouver Island. And I had the luck of going there a couple months back. And I mentioned that I did this podcast, Brew Crime, and I mentioned my other show, Pacific Beer Chat. And, gave the server Paige some stickers and stuff. And before I left, she showed up with a 4-pack of mixed beers for me to take away. And this is one of those beers.
That's the best interaction ever.
Yeah. So
the interaction that ends with beers.
Yeah, I totally agree. We bought some more beers and stuff too. But yeah, so Aerosmith Blonde Ale is 4.8% alcohol. It's kind of like a lager, blonde ales are kind of golden ales, blonde ales are that light kind of lagery kind of thing. It's kind of that golden blonde color, white head.
That is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's like the color of a gold medal.
It's got a nice, fruity, grainy, sweet aroma. Definitely that. I think the fruit's coming from all that hops. It doesn't have that grassy or bitter nose kind of thing. It's just kind of sweet, fruity. On the flavor, it's, a big upfront fruit note from the hops. A little bit of grassiness, but not much. And then it's grain and sweetness from the malt bill. Easy drinking, kind of lager-like. Yeah, non-offensive for lager drinkers, not offensive for most people. It's not going to suck in your beer geeks, but it's good beer.
I just want to say hops are my favorite kind of fruit.
Yes.
When the doctors asked me if I had enough servings of fruit, which they never asked me, so I don't know why I even said that. I usually say yes. I had a 6-pack yesterday.
Yes, bud.
Yes, bud. Jesus.
All right. Well, let's get into this case.
Alaya Belize autograph collection opens as the first Marriott International Resort in Belize.
Screamed headline on May 7th, 2021.
This luxury resort spans over 20 acres and is the first in San Pedro town to sit on more than 1,000 square feet of prime beachfront access.
The resort is co-owned by British billionaire Lord Michael Ashcroft's son, 43-year-old Andrew Ashcroft, and his 32-year-old wife, Jasmine Hartin.
It's the most British name ever. Michael Ashcroft.
Lord Ashcroft?
Lord Ashcroft.
Yes. There's got to be some fucking TV show about them or something.
Isn't there always?
Yeah. This place sounds beautiful and expensive. Kind of like its co-owner, Jasmine Hartin.
Oh, boy.
Although you probably should add a few other adjectives to her name, such as mysterious and deadly. Mysterious in that you can't even get an accurate account if this woman is a Canadian national or an American, or perhaps she has dual citizenship. Kind of up in the air.
I feel like that's one thing that you usually could figure out. But if that's up in the air, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Record of her marriage to Andrew is even sketchy. Are they officially married or common law partners? And deadly because, well, I'll tell you why.
I'm on the edge of my seat, my friend.
Before I do, it's important to understand a little bit about the history and geography of Belize. Belize is in Central America, which is part of the Caribbean. Belize was called the British Honduras until 1973, and in 1981 it was granted its independence, like you had mentioned. Mm-hmm. Belize is considered the mainland, but it has several little islands, including San Pedro and Ambergris Cay off of it. English is the primary language spoken in Belize, like JT has said. Jasmine is mother to 4-year-old twins, Charlie and Ella. Both children are products of Andrew as well. But in spite of being a mom of 2 little ones and wife to Andrew, Jasmine has a bit of a reputation as a party girl. Not all that surprising, really, considering she's sort of like a socialite, married to, like,
sure,
not royalty, but royalty kind of thing, right?
She's living in the 1920s jazz age, but
2021, yeah,
EDM and insane genres of music.
Yeah. In particular, she finds satisfaction in going out and drinking with Belize locals and in San Pedro on the regular.
Well, in fairness, nobody likes drinking with tourists.
That's true. Her partner, Andrew, doesn't enjoy mingling with the native folk and way of life as she does.
He's okay.
Yeah, that's not surprising as a billionaire's son, right?
What a dick.
Yeah. The night of May 22nd, Jasmine was on the mainland of Belize. Andrew was not with her. Jasmine was drinking at a party when a man started to get handsy and aggressive with her.
Mm-hmm.
She was able to ward the man off, but the situation had really shaken her. It was around 3 a.m., but Jasmine decided she would call her good friend, 42-year-old police superintendent Henry Jemmott.
I would call that a great friend.
Yes.
Jeez.
Jasmine, Andrew, and Henry had all been friends for years. Jasmine trusted Henry, and she wasn't sure where to turn that night, so she called the friend who could make her feel secure and safe.
Sure.
Yeah, it makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
Henry was also married with kids. Their friendship really was a platonic one. Like, that's all it is. Mm-hmm. Henry was in Belize City, about an hour away from where Jasmine was. He called a precinct near Jasmine and dispatched them to pick Jasmine up from the party. So law enforcement arrived to escort Jasmine safely to the headquarters, where she waited until Henry arrived at 4:30. So an hour and a half. Considering he's an hour away, that's not bad.
Yeah.
On the ride back to Belize City with Henry, where Jasmine would catch a ferry back to San Pedro, Henry spoke to her about getting a gun for protection.
Okay.
Which I don't know about the gun laws there, but often it's a little harder for people that aren't citizens to get guns. I mean, she's living there, but I don't know. I don't know if she's a permanent resident. Probably not.
Well, she has a billionaire
Husband, yeah. So
so anything's possible with money.
He then handed her his police issue Glock pistol. He instructed her on how to unload it and how to load it again.
All right.
Yeah. This isn't the States. Crazy, huh?
And it's not a euphemism either.
No.
So, yeah, you're right.
He insisted she keep practicing, and she did. Once to Belize City, they bid each other goodbye, and Jasmine hopped on the ferry back to her home. Henry texted her later that morning to make sure she got home safely and was doing okay. During the text, Henry mentioned his wife and he were taking a much-needed break from each other.
Huh.
He needed personal time away from his wife and kids. Jasmine knew how she would repay Henry for his kindness in rescuing her that night prior, and she got him a room to stay in the beach access at their place in San Pedro for a while.
Oh, hey, that's a fine thank you.
Yeah. On May 26th, Henry showed up to claim the room in San Pedro. Henry brought along a friend for his stay, a man named Manuel Pacheco. In all actuality, Manuel wasn't really the best choice of people for police superintendent to be hanging around with. Manuel had just been acquitted of murdering his neighbor.
Now, wait a second. Hold on. Sometimes police are murderers, but rarely do I hear about a police hanging out with a murderer.
Yeah.
That's insane. When you say not the best company,
Yeah.
that's an understatement, my friend.
Yes. The neighbor had been shot 4 times.
Oh, jeez.
Manuel claimed self-defense in spite of a gunshot wound in his neighbor's back. But yet, here he was, Henry on his private island retreat and respite with Manuel.
Yeah. I think we all have shown over time that being shot in the back doesn't mean you're shooting in self-defense.
No. 2 days after arriving on San Pedro on May 28th, 2021, Henry and Manuel spent the day fishing on Henry's Francisco's boat.
Well, I mean, that's what murderers like to do. That's their best hobby.
True.
Launch a rod.
It was a stellar day, and many fish were caught. So many were caught by Henry, in fact, the 6-foot, almost 300-pound man was downright sore, especially in his shoulders from reeling in his catches.
6 foot, 300 pounds? I cannot imagine adding another 100 pounds to my frame. But hey, I mean, he's a big dude.
After a wonderful day fishing, the boat came in and docked. After cleaning the equipment and their haul, the men went for some drinks. As one does, right?
That's what you do. Catch fish, drink beer.
Well, he doesn't drink beer, but yeah. Henry was a whiskey man. It was the only alcohol he would drink. Hours later, and a few sheets to the wind, the men called it a night.
Okay.
Henry and Manuel went back to their room, where Manuel promptly fell asleep. Henry received a text from Jasmine. Jasmine was also out drinking, but at a party with her husband Andrew, and she had just returned home. Jasmine invited Henry to meet up for a nightcap, as one does, right?
Sure.
She asked Andrew if he wanted to go as well, but Andrew declined, saying he was too tired, and encouraged her to just go out without him.
All right.
Jasmine grabbed a bottle of wine and several mini whiskey bottles and headed over to Henry's room about 10:45 p.m.
That's a great combo right there.
Well, I mean, she's drinking the wine. He only drinks whiskey, right?
Fair.
San Pedro enforces a 10 p.m. COVID curfew at this time. But seeing that Manuel was asleep and they didn't want to wake him, the two friends decided to sneak out and take a walk with their drinks. And then he's a cop, so, fuck the rules, right?
Of course.
And she's a socialite.
Right.
They ended up at a pier near another resort. Now, the visual for this pier is quite different from many that are experienced in North America. Most North American piers are highly raised walkways over the sea with railings, so breaking waves or high tides don't come in and sweep people walking on the pier into the ocean, right?
Right.
This pier was pretty close to the water, and the water didn't appear to be rough at all, but it didn't have all the railings and all that.
Okay.
I mean, we get some of those here too, but often piers are more raised and everything.
I've done plenty of wedding photo sessions on docks and piers that are just like that, so.
This pier was more of a jetty, according to CJ.
Yeah.
A longish deck stretched out over the water. The two sat on the pier with their feet dangling over the side. I'm guessing kind of probably in the water.
Sure.
You know, probably a warm night. It's in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
The light of the moon and a few light posts from nearby resorts illuminated their silhouettes. So it was pretty dark, but, lit up.
Yeah.
The friends talked again about Jasmine getting herself a gun. She was just waiting for approval on her gun license. Henry removed his gun from his belt. He removed the magazine and the bullets before he laid his gun, the magazine, and the bullets on the pier between himself and Jasmine. He made Jasmine practice loading and unloading again while they talked. So, fucking with a gun while you're drunk. Never a good idea.
I mean, it's a tale as old as time. Take a couple of small bottles of whiskey and unload a gun.
Yeah, Beauty and the Handgun.
Beauty and the Hand. That's a totally different Disney movie.
Yeah. After a while, Henry was complaining about his sore shoulders. Jasmine set the police-issue Glock pistol down on the pier. She told Henry to swivel around, and she sat behind him and was going to rub his shoulders for him. She teased him about being spoiled. While she began to massage his shoulders, he asked her to hand him his gun so he could reload it. Jasmine picked up the gun and was trying to eject the magazine from it, but it was stuck. She tried again to force it out and at the same time pulled the trigger, shooting her friend Henry in the back of the right ear into his head.
Oh my gosh, he didn't eject the bullet that was in the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no.
Yes.
I was about to make the whole joke of let me rub your shoulders being your cliche college come on, right?
Yeah.
This did not end the same way.
No. Blood splattered onto a shocked Jasmine as all 300 pounds of Henry fell back on her. Jasmine tried to wriggle herself out from under Henry's weight. Jasmine is a small woman compared to the size of her friend. Mm-hmm. And on top of it, Henry was literally dead weight on her.
Yeah.
Which, dead weight is the worst, right?
Yeah.
Nevertheless, Jasmine was able to pull herself from under Henry and his body rolled into the ocean. Security guards from the nearby resort, hearing the gunfire, were first to arrive. They called the police, secured the gun, and tried to calm the hysterical Jasmine, who was screaming at them to help her friend as she walked aimlessly on the pier.
Oh, Jesus.
When officers arrived, they retrieved Henry's gun, the magazine, and the remaining live bullets. It wasn't until 3:30 a.m. when officials were finally able to find Henry's body floating on his back about 9 meters or 30 feet from the pier.
I'm glad they found him early.
Yeah.
Anything could have happened in that regard.
Yeah. Autopsy reports that Henry suffered a major brain hemorrhage due to being shot in his head.
That will do it.
Yep. Jasmine was arrested and charged with negligent homicide. Then she was shuffled off to a tiny concrete cell in San Pedro for 4 days before she was moved to a jail on the neighboring island, Ambergris Cay. The Ashcroft family's attorney spoke on her behalf and instructed Jasmine she was to remain silent about everything.
Yep.
The headlines that just weeks ago were cheering on Ashcroft's beautiful new resort were now ridiculing both Jasmine and Andrew Ashcroft. The public prosecutor's office did not want bail granted to Jasmine as they feared she was a flight risk.
She's got
money, money, money.
Yeah.
Money. After a week and a half behind bars on Ambergris Cay, Jasmine was transferred to a high-security, very rough prison called Hattaville on the mainland of Belize. Her expensive legal team was not able to convince a judge against the move, nor could they convince a judge to grant her bail. A few days after being transferred to Hattaville Prison, Jasmine was granted a $30,000 bail release.
Wow.
After her release, she continually kept trying to contact her husband. She wanted to see their children. Andrew kept avoiding Jasmine.
What?
Yeah. Even hit her with restraining order.
What the hell?
Yeah. Jasmine filmed herself attempting to make contact with Andrew and their children at this resort.
Oh my gosh.
Security forces of the resort, some of whom she had known, restrained her from entering the resort.
That's okay.
Yeah. She somehow found a way in through the resort's kitchen area and cornered Andrew, who again avoided her and kept turning his face from the camera. Jasmine eventually left, but she still desperately wanted to see her twins.
Sure.
Her voice is even heard on the video, "Why can't I see the kids, Andrew?" where he's too busy scurrying away to respond.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Andrew received interim custody of his kids at family court because Jasmine was in police custody. He wasn't about to have them taken away because of her actions. It didn't take long for Andrew to become aloof and eventually estranged from his wife. Seriously, he was trying to distance himself from her as quickly as possible. He was not going to support her through any of this.
It's a case of wanting to maintain appearances, I think.
Yeah, it's total bullshit, yeah.
And I have a feeling it had nothing to do with the children.
No.
They're just kind of...
They're pawns.
They're a great scapegoat.
Yeah, total pawns. He had pulled her legal team, and after her visit to the resort to video him, he had her bail revoked, forcing her back into Hattaville Prison.
Oh my God.
She was also presented with 2 new charges: common assault, claimed by her husband, and possession of a small amount of cocaine found in her purse.
Oh my... Okay.
Jasmine employed her own attorney now and made the statement, quote, "I'm fighting for my life now. I've lost everything, and the only thing I have left is my children." Quote. Jasmine says she's been abandoned by the Ashcrofts because of their fear of bad press. It's not good for the family's reputation.
It's all about the family.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how married into the family you are, you're still married into. Or not married into, or whatever she was. So
Jasmine's trial was set to be underway for the negligent death of Henry for the common assault charge against her from her estranged husband on October 5th, 2021. So I haven't found anything yet of what's come of it. It's now obviously right near the end of October when we're recording this.
Yeah.
So this is the end of the part that CJ wrote. But when I was looking this case up originally, there was some really salacious claims out there too. So I wanted to cover a little bit of that as well.
I was going to say, hit me with them.
So now, of course, with the death of a police officer, and not just a police officer, but a police superintendent, it was obvious that this would get messy and rumors would fly.
Yep.
I wanted to cover a few of these, as it just goes to show no matter how much money you have, the money and power can't save you from the mix of alcohol and guns.
No.
Everything seems to point to an accidental manslaughter case at this point, after all. It would not take long for rumors to fly, and it would get out in the press, including in the New York Times, that Jasmine and Henry were likely playing a game of Russian roulette.
What? How do you... Okay.
Yeah. Now, while this is more of a rumor, this was something that the police were looking at seriously at the beginning.
I do want to say that, you know, the entry wound for the gun was behind the ear, right? And I've never seen somebody play Russian roulette and put their gun behind their ear.
It's usually the mouth, isn't it?
It's usually there or the temple.
Yeah.
Right? You know, common sense is not common.
Yeah.
So
I can find no current articles that mention this as a possibility, though. So it is likely that the police have dropped this as a possibility. It was just bullshit they were kind of putting out there originally.
Right.
An inmate at the Hattaville prison, also nicknamed as the Hattaville Ramada.
Okay.
I kind of love that. Like, that's a real fucking hit at the Ramada hotels. This is a really shitty prison, and it's the Hatteville Ramada.
Hey, let's go to the Ramada.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't mean that.
An inmate named Jose would have a few things to say about Jasmine. Yes, that proves that this is not a only women's prison. This is a men and women prison, right? The overcrowded prison had adjoining cells, one housing female inmates and the other males. He would claim that Jasmine would claim that Henry was shot by people on a boat. He would also claim that he had spoken to Jasmine and stated that she was, quote, "Once I came upon, I applauded her and stated, 'You're the first lady to kill a cop.'" He would then claim that she would only smile at this comment. He would also claim that, quote, "I can't say whether or not she was doing medicine," read cocaine, "or whatever. However, she apparently actually fucked up."
Yeah.
Jose really does not sound all that credible, but he would claim that, quote, "Really, they were roughing her up because it was a cop that died. So to be real with you, what I saw wasn't nice." So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As much as most of his talk sounds like bullshit, this does ring a bit true with Jasmine killed a police officer. Like, she's going to get her ass handed to her.
Mm-hmm.
The last rumor I want to mention is, according to Manuel, the man who was only recently acquitted of murder that was with Henry at the resort owned by Jasmine and her former partner, he claims Henry claimed that Jasmine and him were going to be going on a secret date the night of his death. As with so many gun deaths, this case is messy as hell, and I hope in the end Henry's family can at least get a little closure, because you're never getting closure usually when it's just fucking messy. There's all kinds of court battles. There's bullshit flying all over the place. This was almost certainly an accidental death. Yeah, you shouldn't have been fucking around with a gun, but they were both drunk. He was pushing it on her, and unfortunately it went off and someone died. Leave the guns at home when you're drinking.
Yeah, whiskey and guns. It doesn't even look good in the movies.
No,
so
it doesn't.
You probably shouldn't do it. Ugh.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Agreed.
Terrible situation. The problem is that her significant other former partner has enough money where he controls the narrative.
He sure does, yeah. So if we get any updates on this, we'll mention it.
Yeah.
Who knows? At this point, there's been no updates. All right. Well, thanks for tuning into this episode of Brew Crime. You can find us on all social media platforms at Brew Crime. We have a Facebook group at Brew Crime Group. And if you go there, you can interact with us. You can post crime stories, whatever you want to do. We'd love you to come on there and send us a message. You know, talk to us. We love it.
We love our peeps.
Yes. If you would like to support the show, head to patreon.com/brewcrime now. Money goes towards upgrading equipment and making the show that much better. You get one bonus episode a month, as well as early ad-free access to our episodes. So shout out to our Patreon supporters: True Crime Nana, 3 Beers In Podcast, Amber, and the Faves of Our Lives Podcast. Cheers.
Bye.
All cases on Brew Crime are written by Mike and JT or a writer we credit on the episode, and sources are put into our show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. Check out our store at tpublic.com/stores/brew-crime-podcast, where you can purchase gear like t-shirts, phone cases, stickers, pillows, and all kinds of other cool stuff. Brew Crime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution licensed audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo designed by Ben Greenberg. Thanks for listening to this episode of Brew Crime Podcast.
Hey there, friend. My name's Sarai, and I host a spooky, casual podcast called Freaky AF, where I tell you stories of conspiracies, true crime, and of the supernatural. So if that's your kind of shiz, come check us out. I'm sure we'll be great friends. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, and a bunch of other places. Or you can look us up on Twitter and Instagram. We're Freaky AF Pod. That's FREAKYAFPOD. Come get spooked, y'all.
I'm Paige, the host of Reverie True Crime. I tell stories of helpless victims, vicious killers, predators watching their prey before they strike, survivors, petty crimes, people we think we know who do the unthinkable, and the dangers that lurk not only in the dead of night, but in plain sight in the light of day. Every once in a while, I'll also tell stories of the frightening paranormal, elusive cryptids, haunted locations, and conspiracies that may be silly or thought-provoking. You can listen to Reverie True Crime wherever you're listening to this podcast. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Reverie Crime Pod, Facebook, Instagram, and even Tumblr at Reverie True Crime. Remember, stay safe, be aware of your surroundings at all times, and take care.
Grief is a disease. We were ridden. Do that again. So Belize borders Mexico to the north. So in terms
step
of
to the left.
It's the worst cha-cha slide ever. Countries and its global gender gap. There's a lot of G's. 1 second.
That was quite the G spot. I'm cutting that one.
Do you want me to do that sentence again?
No.
Okay. Sorry, I heard a ding.
That was my fault, but it's also a different channel, so it's okay.
Oh, great. Sorry.
No.
Dr. Mario Estradabon. This is a hard word for brew crime. One of the victim's aunts said she sells
seashells, yeah.
Leading to the conviction of the
Before I do, it's important to understand a little bit about the history and geography of Belize. Fucking cups. Ambergris K off of it, I think. Ambergris. Ambergris. Oh, ambergris. There we go.
Could I have made that sound any more awkward? Nobody can see it, but Mike put his forehead against the microphone.
Yeah. This pier was pretty close to the water and didn't appear to be a
pier.
Oh, whoops. I'm going to cut this, but I love this. I can't find no.